So after watching Flight Risk, I could without any doubt say that this might just be the weakest movie of 2025 thus far. Now, this review, I will be definitely pointing out a lot of positives and a lot of things that I really enjoyed about the movie, but also touching upon the negatives that I really didn't enjoy about this movie. And unfortunately, the negatives kind of outweighed the positives, but the positives are very strong and made this movie very enjoyable for me. It's just, this movie wasn't really perfect. So without further ado, let me just get into this review for Flight Risk. So the first thing I want to talk about in this review is the pilot character, played by Mark Wahlberg. Now, of course, there are some elements that I enjoyed about this character, but there's also some I didn't. The main thing I could point out that I didn't like about his character was his forced accent. His accent did not seem natural whatsoever and definitely seemed like forced, because I feel like some lines of dialogue that Mark Wahlberg's character has kind of sounds, like normal speaking kind of, not like the kind of cowboyish voice that he's supposed to have in this movie. But nonetheless, Mark Wahlberg in this role does an amazing job. He gives a nice, eerie, suspenseful performance as this pilot character, and his action sequences with the other cast members are really also well done. And yeah, his character is just a joy to see on screen and is played brilliantly by Mark Wahlberg. I could really say a lot of positives about this movie come specifically from the character that Mark Wahlberg played, because I love Mark Wahlberg. I love almost any movie he's in, and this movie is kind of no different. I still enjoy this movie, and Mark Wahlberg is one of the main reasons I enjoy this film. So within this review, this is one of the most positive things I could say about this movie, is Mark Wahlberg, who plays the pilot. So now I want to talk about the character of Winston. Now, surprisingly, I actually didn't know Topher Grace was in this movie, and you may know Topher Grace for playing Eddie Brock, aka Venom, in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, but unfortunately, he does not do anything for this movie. He doesn't save it, but he also doesn't make me hate this movie. But he doesn't really play a lovable character. He complains a lot, his character. He really contributes basically nothing for the story, and his character kind of is a waste, but he's still a fun character to see on screen. Topher Grace still does an amazing, flawless job with his craft in this movie, and you kind of just it's one of those situations where you love a character so much you hate it. That's basically how I could really end me talking about this character, is I love him so much that I hate him, honestly. Or another way to look at it is I hate him so much that I love him, because nonetheless, you can't really hate a character like him, He is greatly written, and although he really does not contribute much to the story at all, you still like his character. He's still entertaining on screen, and ultimately that's what you want from a dumb fun movie like this, with this very, very fun premise. You expect probably stupid characters, you expect poorly written dialogue, and you get that in this movie, but you get good characters. So since you get good characters, you can't really complain that much. So the last character I want to talk about in this review is Madeline Harris, played by Michelle Dockery. Madeline in this movie is actually a very intriguing character, and her fights with the pilot are very, very action-packed and interesting, and I feel like the writers definitely wrote her character very, very well. Of course, she has the same problems as the rest of the cast has. Dialogue issues. This movie was not well written, and you could really see that with her line deliveries and her lines of dialogue itself. But everything she does in this movie otherwise is really, really well done. She's good in her action sequences, and she's a very intriguing character, and she is one of the reasons I did end up enjoying this movie, because of Michelle Dockery's brilliant portrayal of this character. And she is definitely one of the positives that I could really say about this movie, and I'm glad to say that, because when I was watching the trailers, I thought maybe I wouldn't really like her character, but watching the movie now, having experienced it, she's a great character. She really is. And she is definitely one of the highlights of this movie, and one of the best things I could say about this film. So now with the characters out of the way, I want to talk about the story. Now, the story is quite good in this movie, I have to say. Of course, there are some plot holes in this movie that really hold it back, but for the most part, the story in this film is really, really good and well done. Mel Gibson, a brilliant actor who I actually really enjoy, had a part in this story, he wrote it and directed it, so that's really good in itself. He's a great director. I remember he directed this movie maybe a little while back, and I ended up really enjoying that movie. And that just shows how good of a director he could be. And going into this movie, he definitely pulled something good here. Obviously, it's not the best in the world, but he did really, really well with this movie. And of course, the story, I could say the same thing about, really, you know? The story is really extremely well done. Of course, like I said, some negatives because this movie is far from perfect, but it is really enjoyable and the story is awesome. Very entertaining throughout, the hour and 50-minute runtime in this movie? Never mind, hour and 31-minute runtime, which very short movie, surprisingly, you know? Like, you don't really get short movies now in, 2025 that are big Hollywood movies with stars like Mark Wahlberg, you know? But this was a very short movie, I guess. But yeah, the story was really golden within this movie and very, very well done. So now I want to talk about the action. Now this will be actually a very short category within the video. There's not really much action within this movie, but the few action scenes you get are super, super well done and very entertaining to watch, especially when they are taking over the plane from our villain. That is a very, very awesome fight scene. And another thing that I could really say that is positive about this movie, really. It's just another good part. The few action sequences you get within this movie are really, really well done and very, very entertaining. But yeah, it's still a very short category in this video due to the limited amount of action sequences in the actual movie, because this is like a more story-driven movie, but still there was some action, so that action really stuck out to me and I had to mention it. So now it's time to give my ranking for this movie. Now for action, I'm gonna give 2 stars due to, of course, the limited amount of action, and honestly, this movie, like I said in my action category, wasn't really that action-packed, but the few action scenes you do get are really, really well done and entertaining. So for now, comedy, I'm gonna give 1 star. It is not a funny movie whatsoever. And honestly, they try to be funny in this movie. They definitely try to be funny, but I don't think you or anybody in the theater with you will laugh at any of the jokes. And if you watch this at home, your family's not gonna laugh. It is not a funny movie. And obviously it shouldn't be, but they tried so hard to inject some comedy into this movie, but it honestly did not work. They did not pull it off. So it's going down as 1 star. Now, drama in the movie, I'm gonna give 2 stars because obviously it's still crazy with the plot, you know, like it's about a freaking hitman as a pilot, and of course the people on the ride with him have to stop him and take over while also listening to the pilot because the pilot's the only one who knows how to use the plane. So obviously the drama is a little there in this movie, but it's not there enough to actually be fully mentioned, you know? So the drama overall wasn't really that noticeable within this movie, and the little drama that you do get, you really can't notice, first of all, and second of all, you really can't enjoy that drama. I mean, maybe for like casual moviegoers or like critics, they'll understand it, but I just didn't. And honestly, the drama wasn't really there. Now, for suspense, I'm gonna give 2 stars because it was still suspenseful, but I don't think it was suspenseful enough to the point where you're on the edge of your seat. You know, there was some suspense, but overall not enough to actually get you to the edge of your seat, wondering who's gonna live, who's gonna die, what's gonna happen next. You don't really get a sense or feeling in this movie with the suspense, and that just hurts me to say. But the little amount of suspense you get is so satisfying and so well done. So with the rankings done, I will officially be giving this movie an 8 out of 10. It is good, but it's not the best. But that is my thoughts on the film Flight Risk. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys on the next review.